We are live, everybody, once again. We're so back. All right, so thank you, everybody who just swung over. Talk about whiplash. We went like this. We were all, whoa. All right, so we're back. Well, now we're gonna talk tropics now. Boy, oh boy, what a night. What a night. Happy Thursday again, everybody, because I know sometimes we have two different demographics that pop up for some of my live streams, so thank you all for bearing with me. I know we had that postponement yesterday. I know that the new ENSO forecast from Climate Prediction Center and NOAA would release as of today, so I figured it made the most sense to just go ahead and carry this over into this evening. Did I think we were going to have live streams butting up against each other? No, but you know what? Here we are, so it's a pleasure to see everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in on this Thursday evening. I hope everything is great in your neck of the woods. If you would not mind, if you're just recently discovering the channel or you've been here for a while, it would be sincerely appreciated if you nudge that like button, give it a little nudge, our favorite catchphrase on here. And we are going to do a bit of a deep dive in some of the latest forecasts that have come out from Climate Prediction Center because, truthfully, we've had a bit of a rapid transition, okay? We were talking a couple of different influences back about a week or so ago in terms of our ENSO, and now we are suddenly starting to see a transition in a totally different direction that could pay dividends with the hurricane season. It could change a lot. We could be seeing an evolution in our hurricane preseason forecasts, and we may actually see some of our climate models start to adjust as well. So first things first, we have to do the wide look across the tropics, and you can see the basin's quiet. There's nothing out there. Nothing out there whatsoever. Even some of the thunderstorms, some of the convection that's over the ITCZ right now has dissipated. We got a monstrosity of a wave out there off the right-hand side there. I don't know if you guys can see it behind where my head is. I think you got a little bit of it on the satellite shot. Not a whole lot going on in the East Pac, and I know that the main area of concern is this digging weather feature that's moving over the western coast of the United States that is expected to bring a two-phase severe weather event for the north and the south eastern half of the United States. So it's good to see everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. I see a lot of folks in the chat getting off in there. I love it. I love it. I love it. Let's go ahead and pop the chat out so I can have you guys front and center with me so I can see all of your questions, comments, and concerns. Now, I will say there has been something very interesting right in through here popping up on all of our models. The Euro, the GFS, the climate, the Canadian model, and the Icon model. There's a little blip. I'm just going to call it the little blip that could. That's been very interesting, and I'll show you all that here in a moment, but for the sake of time, let's get started. So this is obviously the February quick outlook. This was published back on February 19th, but what we're here to see is the mid-February update per our model data. So this has changed. Are you kidding me? All right. Well, I guess it's temporarily Jover. I don't know why this is not working. All right, so anyways, you can see in the small box here, so this was the previous analysis by NOAA and Climate Prediction Center. And notice the difference here. See how La Nina transitions down rapidly? This would be the peak of the hurricane season right through here. This is the peak of the season, the tail end of the peak. Some could argue, honestly, that this whole area is peak hurricane season because you have July, August, September, October, and then obviously into November. And I want you to strictly look at the blue bars on this bar graph here. Notice that rapid descent out of a La Nina and an increasing in the ENSO neutral phase here between March, April, May, and June. This would be about the time frame they're thinking it will start to emerge. We're already there right now, so we're technically ahead of schedule. What's very interesting on this chart here, however, is the mid-February 2025 analysis, which is the most recent update. Note that we are already into the neutral phase, but now the neutral period is expected to collapse, and we're kind of looking at almost a rerun of what happened last year. We're looking at the potential transition back to a La Nina as we go through June, July, August, and September. And from what I remember looking at the forecasts last year, the models were a little overzealous in trying to capture that movement from an El Nino to a neutral and then into a La Nina. So it's safe to say that even though we start to trend up in the La Nina category here, you can start to notice that quickly after that, we're back fully into a La Nina mode. Betty Johnson, thank you so much for tuning in. Sabrina Marshall, hello there. Silver Steel S, glad to have you with us once again. Twilight Firefly 100, Daddy Shark, PM is back. Kevin Rivera from Puerto Rico. Here in Puerto Rico, it's raining heavily with some thunderstorms. First thunder of the year, that's very interesting. Daddy Shark, LMAO, and Jehovah, I love you too. It's good to see you in the chat, as always. So what I think going back to La Nina is because we have an increase in our trade winds. I've noticed that a lot of our long-range teleconnections are indicating that we're probably going to have a reinforcing of our North American, North Atlantic oscillation. I always get the Americans, the Atlantics, and everybody else in between dorked up. But it looks like our models for the middle portions of the year are trending back towards a more enhanced pressure gradient over the tropics, which are going to likely increase our trade winds. I haven't looked at any of the Havmahler diagrams just because of the fact that we're so far away. We're not going to see anything reliable at this point in time. But what I'm very curious about is the fact that, you know, the climate models are capturing the Nina transition to ENSO neutral fairly reliably, and then they trend us back in the La Nina direction. Let me see. Do I have the newest stuff pulled up? I should have them up. Here we go. So you can see that we are starting to switch out. This is Climate Prediction Center and NOAA's indication here. We go down from neutral as we get into the deep end of spring, early summer, and then the La Nina territory begins to crank up. And then I do believe that they have the climate models on here. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Maybe they don't. Never mind. I know I have them pulled up somewhere. Here you go. This was something I had shared the other day, and this is what really I can't word right now. This is what really stuck out to me recently. And again, I'll go ahead and draw on the bottom here where the peak of the hurricane season would be, right in through here. And if you notice, almost every single one of our climate models are trending back towards the cool neutral to weak La Nina. Some of them are even arcing back into a moderate La Nina phase as we get into the second half of the hurricane season, which is precisely what happened last year. If you guys recall, we were predicting that we would hit the La Nina phase, a stronger La Nina phase, by the time we got into May, June, July. But there was that period of latency. It stopped. It got stuck in the mud. It was Jover for a bit. And then finally, as we got into September, late September, we all know Helene. October, say hello to Milton, Michael's cousin. And then we got deeper into October, and then finally November. That's when the La Nina really took effect. And I find it very interesting that all of our climate models are starting to trend back. El Nino is pretty much no more. There's not a single model out there anymore that's really calling for an El Nino. And I believe I read somewhere in their latest update, I know I have it pulled up somewhere. I should have it pulled up somewhere. Spoiler alert. Let me see. I think it's in this article here. Let me see. Where is it? I just read it. There's a very, very, very low percentage for El Nino now. Here we go. So there is a 75% chance that the February-April average will be ENSO neutral, and neutral is the most likely state through the summer. Looking toward the fall, the chances of La Nina increase. The October-December average has a tie between neutral and La Nina, with a lower chance of El Nino, around 1 in 5 shot. So only giving it about a 15% likelihood that we get a El Nino at this point. So I'm really wondering now if that starts to change our climate forecast models. We've still got another month ahead of us before we get another run of the Euro, and I'm very curious to see if the Euro starts to bump the numbers up a little bit, because I noticed with the March update, it trended away from El Nino territory. And one thing I've noticed a lot of folks are not mentioning is because of the anomalous warmth that's still out there over the subtropics, over the Gulf, over the Caribbean, we're seeing a bit of an overriding in what would typically occur if we were in an El Nino pattern. You get the rising motion focused over the Pacific, sinking air and wind shear in either direction across both the Indonesian region, we'll say, the maritime continental tropics, and then over the Atlantic basin. The fact that we have such warmth everywhere almost. Down in the Maritimes, in the Indian Ocean, we still have the negative dipole formed up. We still have the negative PDO. And we also have our Atlantic Nino still kicking, alongside the Gulf and the Caribbean being our almost warmest basins, you can argue. We're going to be having a combating force of upward vertical velocities. And I'm really wondering now if our models are going to swing in that direction. Because I'm noticing, here's the CFS, and I've been watching this very closely as well, and if you look, as we go through April, the CFS is already forecasting we're going to start to see an increase in our rainfall anomalies through the tropics, through the Caribbean, and then starting to push into the lower Gulf. If you go forward to May, kind of the same song and dance. We're already going to have lots of precipitation out there, and then June is already looking fairly active out there, both for the ITCZ up through the Caribbean and then possibly into the Gulf for the eastern United States. So, I'm definitely very curious to see what starts to take shape as we go through time. I really am. I'm very curious. Here, once again, for those of you who may not have caught the last update that we did, this is our latest European outlook. If you notice, it's a fairly mute Atlantic, but I'm wondering if this starts to change. The key takeaway here is we're looking at a dominant high pressure over the Atlantic, the Bermuda-Azores high, driving moisture and rainfall anomalies back towards the west. And if we do transition to the to the neutral, if not the La Nina pattern, whether it be a neutral cool or a weak La Nina, then 2024 could possibly be another repeat back this year. Or I should say 2024 could also very well be an analog for this upcoming season. And then this is where it gets kind of interesting. So there's been a lot of buzz on social media about this. I haven't paid too much attention to it, to tell you the truth, because I just don't really look at the tropics when it's this time of the year. But look at this guy right there. This thing's trying to do the most right now. It's doing the most out there. We got a little wave that tries to form up on a leftover tail of a front and push towards the north and merge with one of the systems that comes off the United States, the tail end of that severe weather phase, and then it does a Fujiwara dance. Obviously, the 18Z is not as impressive, truthfully, but the 12Z definitely had something a little bit more organized out there for a very brief window of time. Very, very, very interesting. Some kind of subtropical mayhem. And personally, that's what I do think this could look like as we go through the hurricane season. With such subtropical warmth out there, I do think we could see a greater chance of these random things forming up and trying to shoot up towards the north. This was present on the European model as well. If I go back to the 12Z, I mean, even the 18Z right there captures it. Right there, you can see it plain as day, forming up out there off the leftovers of a front. And if I go here to the vorticity, kind of looks a little on the edge of tropical, how quickly it tightens up. Look at that. So, yeah, I'm not saying there's going to be a subtropical storm out there, but it definitely looks like the Atlantic was trying to do something, was definitely trying to do the most for a little while. And you can see the difference here. I want you to look closely at this. So this here is our mid-latitude cyclone. Look at the stretched out vorticity on that. There's the low, all elongated and stretched out. This kind of has that look to it, as a lot of folks would be saying. That kind of has the look, which is very impressive that our models are even hinting towards something like that happening. Very impressive. The water temperatures are not the most amazing out there, but technically, could we see subtropical growth? Absolutely. I believe last time I checked, the water temps are between 77 and 79 degrees Fahrenheit, right in that general area, so it's not impossible. It is definitely not impossible to see something try to get its act together before getting sucked in by the jet. Let me see, what else was I going to show you? I think that's honestly about it. That was one of the main things I wanted to talk to you all about, is the fact that we have our stuff changing. Wait, did this just change right now? Did this just update while we were in the stream? Because I'm not even joking. I pulled this up, and that definitely said February. You guys can check that when we go back, because I'm pretty sure this just updated, and that's why this was down. Yeah, here we go. We're so back. So there it is. You can see that as we go through the peak of the hurricane season, our latest probabilistic dynamic models are thinking La Nina could make a return as we start rocking through June, July, and August. Here's our probabilities. You can see that October, November, December right there, we give El Nino a 13% fighting chance that it actually comes to fruition. So at this point, Dr. Phil Klotzbach was correct. He was immediately saying, back when we did our interview last month, he had told me, I don't see an El Nino. I really don't see an El Nino happening. And it looks like we are moving back in that general direction with La Nina starting to climb back up right in time for the peak of the hurricane season, and we could possibly be in another La Nina winter, and this concerns me. September, October, November, a 54% likelihood that we will be in La Nina. That's another thing I want to emphasize, folks, too, is when we look at these charts, it's not necessarily that this is forecasting at what point in time we're going to transition, okay? When we look at this probabilistic forecast, it is showing us the chance that we will already be in that phase. And I want to emphasize that as well, because I know sometimes folks will kind of communicate this or they won't know how to read it. And I'm not saying you all, I mean other sources that may try to brief you on stuff like this. The models are not showing that we're going to go from neutral into La Nina at that point in time. No, it's showing us the probability that we'll be in X, Y, or Z. So for example, April, May, and June, we have the greatest probability that we'll be in a neutral phase. We have the greatest probability by August, September, October that we'll be in a La Nina. Obviously, the bars are close, but that's how you would read it, that even though it's a narrow margin, we have the greatest probability of being in a La Nina more so than a neutral. And that's another thing, too, and I had to kind of brief this on television a couple days ago with Storm Prediction Center, is when you see 2%, 5%, 10%, etc., it's not literally saying 10% chance of thunderstorms. No, it's saying probability of getting a storm within 25 nautical miles of your area is that likelihood, or is that percentage. So in this case, yes, you can kind of see the evolution in the bars. You know, obviously you can make a case that we're going to have a transitional point between June, July, August from the neutral to La Nina, but it's all probabilities. It's just the principles of if you roll the dice, you have a probability of rolling a 1, a 2, or 3, or 4, etc. And in this case, a roll of the ENSO dice shows us that we have a probability of being in a La Nina by the peak of the hurricane season. I also want to make that clear, too, and kind of help you all out when reading these types of things, is it's not showing the intensity either. It could technically mean we're in a strong La Nina by winter time, because this doesn't predict intensity. Again, you can infer the intensity, because if you're neck and neck with the neutral, for example, during August, September, and October, and you're still making that transition more or less, then, you know, obviously you're not going to jump from a neutral to a super La Nina. But, again, the way you'd interpret this chart is we have a much greater probability. There's a higher likelihood we are in a neutral phase for the spring, and then a higher likelihood that we will expect a La Nina by the fall. Which is why I'm telling you, I get that warm, fuzzy feeling that we're going to be holding on to our butts here in Florida in October, if not late September again. So yeah, that's all she wrote. And then PM brought up the names for the 2025 hurricane season. If you're not able to see the chat, we have Andrea, Barry, Chantal, Dexter, Aaron, Fernand, Gabrielle, Umberto, Imelda, Jerry, Karen, Lorenzo, Melissa, Nestor, Olga, Pablo, Rebecca, Sebastian, Tanya, Van, and Wendy. Good old Vince isn't on the table anymore. I kind of shot myself in the foot to kind of bring some positivity into the stream. But there was a moment in time a couple months ago where we actually had Tropical Cyclone Vince out there in the Maritimes, and I wanted so bad to do a random like YouTube short or a random live stream to say, folks, we're tracking Vince. Vince is back after the shenanigans that took place at the end of the 2023 season. And I agree, the Atlantic names are actually pretty solid this year. Last year, I could not, both Jonathan at News 6 and I were sitting there thinking, are you kidding me right now? We're getting hit by a storm named Milton? Really? But this year, all of them sound like they could pack a punch. Andrea, Barry, Chantel feel like is going to be a dead ringer. Same thing with Dexter. Dexter feels like it's going to be a heavy hitter. I'm going to be watching Imelda. I feel like Imelda is going to do something to Florida. It's just got that ring to it. Umberto, I can definitely see being some kind of sloppy cyclone that just ends up being a rainmaker. I can't see that being a major hurricane. And if I eat my words, then I am so sorry to all the Umbertos out there. Yeah, there we go. TJ 2003. There was a Vince in the Southwest Indian Ocean. So Vince took its sweet time, circled the globe for approximately 2 years, and then formed up out there in the Southwest Indian Ocean. Louisiana is definitely going to watch. I definitely think Louisiana needs to pay close attention. So I will show you... Oh, you know what? Since we're kind of in that portion of the stream, let's go to Tropical Tidbits and see if we have any new analogs that have popped up with some of our recent evolutions in the pattern. No, not just yet. It looks like we're still seeing 2017 is our top analog right now. Many people are considering 2017 to be the top analog. In 2017, it was not a fun year. 2017 was a very destructive hurricane season. '17 was brutal. Rosa, honey, if you're still watching, this was the year of Irma and Maria. There they are right there, as a matter of fact. 2017 is the #1 analog for everybody out there right now. And there are folks beginning to speculate that this could be a busier season than what models are alluding to. But anyways, let's go back to the satellite so I can show you, and I'll zoom it on in. Well, I'm not going to zoom it on in, but my hotspots for this year, I really do think that the Lesser Antilles to about the... Why is my pen so small? I hate it when that happens. I really do think that the Lesser Antilles, the Leeward Islands to about Hispaniola, are really going to need to pay attention. And I'm including Jamaica and the Cayman Islands in there as well. Because we all know that it honestly takes a little bit of extra oomph and energy from the atmosphere to get these things to curve through Cuba. We haven't seen any of that in a little bit. Last hurricane season, even if you remember, we had Oscar take a really sharp turn away from Cuba and disappear. So it takes a little bit for Cuba to get a direct hit. But I am including this area as a hotspot. I'm watching this whole area as a hotspot. And for the United States, I'm looking at from the New Orleans area to about the Sarasota, Fort Myers area of Florida. And then I am including the Mid-Atlantic coast in my hotspots for the year. Southern Windward Islands, I really don't see too much happening during the peak season because unless we see some rapid evolutions in our climate models, I'm still seeing an ebbing and flowing in our steering currents over the subtropics and the mid-latitudes. That's why I'm thinking that the Leeward Islands and up through here, and yes, PM, I do agree, Turks and Caicos and the Bahamas are also going to have to pay close attention. But that's why I'm thinking that our general track tendencies are probably going to be something like this, and something like this. I really don't see a tremendous amount of action getting into western Louisiana or Texas unless we have a pattern like Beryl, where we have the negative PNA and a very, very dominant, I'm talking an aggressive NAO out there over the Atlantic, to where we get a big bubble over the eastern United States and an even stronger bubble over the central Atlantic that's just going to drive something all the way home from out there. Now, again, obviously, the hotspots are not necessarily saying that we're not going to get any other landfalls elsewhere. I'm saying that I'm pinpointing these general areas right in through here for the greatest activity possible for the United States. Now, do I think that we have the possibility to see a Florida Straits storm or a Southeast Florida storm? 110%. Am I saying that we won't get anything in Texas, Louisiana? Absolutely not. We can get some some sloppy tropical action from an early Central American gyre or a late gyre through the month of October near Halloween time into November. But for me personally, if I had to rack and stack, and I'll do that for you, I would say my #1 hotspots are going to be like this. That would be #1. Here is #2. And then here is my number 3 hotspot. I'll do it in green. There you go. So the pink is going to be number 1. Pink's going to be number 1. The yellow are going to be my number 2 spots. And then the green is going to be my number 3. That is what, if I had to make a prediction right now, that is where I'd put everything. And to echo your sentiments, Jim Edits 900, I already know that everybody out there who loves themselves a good LRC, a Leesax recurring cycle, they are having a field day with all these west to east moving low pressures that have bombarded Florida. I know it because we had that one storm system that came across the south, dropped the snowfall. We just had another storm system that came across the south, dropped the severe weather. So I know all of our LRC lovers out there, including the folks over at WESH, are definitely digging in and wondering when we're going to get our next major storm system in the tropics that's going to move off towards Florida. And technically, when you think about it, it has been a recurring theme. We have seen that the last couple of years. 2023, we saw it. We just saw the El Nino version of it. If you remember, we had a system that formed up in the Bay of Campeche precisely as Milton did, only because of the subtropical jet shear, it came across Florida and just created an overnight tornado outbreak. So you could technically make a case that we've had that same pattern setting up for the last couple of years now. I'm not too sure if 2021 had something like that. Let's take a quick look just to see. 2021, did we have something come across the Gulf? Did we have anything form up through the Gulf? Kind of. I mean, we had one Bay of Campeche system, and then we had something that formed up late, it looks like, just off the Big Bend of Florida, right there where my cursor is. 2022, did we have something like that? 2022, we kind of did. Looks like there was a... Which storm was that? Was that Martin or was that Earl? I can't tell. Oh, here we go. That was... Oh, Alex formed and went down through the southern half of Florida. And there's something right there, as a matter of fact, too, from 2022. So, I mean, it is a recurring theme, you know? We can't dismiss the science behind it. There is a little bit of science. I personally haven't dug too heavily into the Leesax recurring cycle. I probably should, just to be safe. But you can see that in 2022, it was a recurring theme. 2023, we had it. And then, obviously, we all know who Milton is. That's for sure. Here's another look at the GFS real quick. Just looking down range. Oh, I thought that said 967 millibar low over the front range, but that's 987. You can see that the pattern is definitely setting itself up for lots of severe weather action. It looks like that's almost a repeat of what we have going on right there at the end of the month. I'm pinpointing that we're going to have another severe weather event sometime between the 23rd and the 25th, if not just beyond that, pending our models don't delay it a little bit. And then first half of April is going to be very busy. First half of April is definitely going to be busy. That is right. I do remember that now. Alex was that low pressure, that sloppy low pressure that flooded the southern half of Florida. Do you look at the long-range ensemble members for the GFS? I do, yes. I definitely do. There's that random little storm system that forms off the tail of the front out there. So the clock is ticking, everybody, as we get ready to wrap up this live stream now. Clock is definitely ticking, and we have some very interesting trends that are popping up on all of our models. Very interesting trends. And you know what? Every time I do these live streams, I feel like there's still so much more for me to dig into, so much more that I want to study. And you know what, Wazim, you're very right about that. I don't know why I don't. We're both meteorologists. We're both television meteorologists. I should low-key just be like, hey, dude, let's talk. Because at the end of the day, even though we're at different TV stations, we're still serving the same purpose, and I'm a huge believer in collaboration. So you know what? I think right after this, I'm going to try to shoot him a message and see if we can talk tropics for a little bit, pick his brain, and get some insight. I think that's a great idea. I may even ask if he's going to be attending the hurricane conference this year. I'm not too sure which meteorologists from Central Florida are going to the hurricane conference out in New Orleans. I'm going to be there. We're going to be there all 4 days, and thank the Heavenly Father. I praise God for this, but WKMG has given me a full ride to the conference, too. They're going to pay for everything. Got a nice hotel stay about 10 minutes away from the venue. Haven't decided on a rental car just yet. Maybe, depending on what shenanigans we all get into, but either way, I'm very excited to bring you all coverage from the Hurricane Conference. We'll have a lot to talk about in the month of April. We'll definitely have a lot to talk about. Roxanne Hudson, New Orleans, having severe weather starting Saturday. That is correct, yes. On Saturday, we have a possible outbreak of severe weather down there that I've been pinpointing very closely. That's the theme of the conference this year, too, PM. We have a lot of trainings and a lot of seminars and workshops that are very heavily involved in talking about Katrina. I think the overarching slogan of the conference, let me see, I'll just look it up right now. You see it right here, National Hurricane Conference. Let's see, where does I know it says it's somewhere on here. At least it should say it's somewhere. Yeah, there it is. Looking back 20 years after Katrina. It's at the Hilton Riverside in New Orleans, and I'm really excited. Mark Sudduth and Phil Klotzbach are going to be there on day 4. And I'm going to probably reach out to Mark here within the next few days, and I'm definitely going to touch base with Phil once again, getting closer to April, let him know that I'm for sure going, and I can't wait to see him, and I hope that him and I can sit down in person this time and talk tropics, because I think CSU will release their forecast on the 5th, I believe he told me. I have to go back and watch the interview, which, as a matter of fact, let me just do that right now before we close out the live stream. News 6, Phil Klotzbach. There we go. So if you want to head on over to WKMG's website, their YouTube channel, you can see here that we have my interview right up here front and center that Phil and I did a little over a month ago. We got to talk tropics together. So yeah, guys, that's all she wrote. We're going to go ahead and wrap up the live stream. I got to get something to eat. I'm getting hungry. But yeah, so if you want to go over to News 6 YouTube channel and take a look at the interview, definitely feel free to do so. Is issuing it on Thursday, the 3rd of April. Okay, Thursday the 3rd. So that's less than a month away. Less than a month away, and we'll have their forecast, and then all the other ones are going to come rolling out as well. Right now, we have a mixed bag of forecasts out there, too, because TSR should be updating their forecast very soon. They went very average. I think they're calling for 13 to 14 named storms with only a couple of hurricanes. WESH 2 released theirs at the very beginning of this month. They're going for, I think, 18 to 20 named storms with just under a dozen hurricanes, just under a dozen, I believe like 9 or 10. And then WeatherBell has released their update for the hurricane season, and I think they're also going for an above-average season. Let me just take a quick glance at that here. Let's see. Yeah, so 15 to 19 named storms, 7 to 9 hurricanes, 3 major hurricanes with an ACE of 120 to 150. A lot of folks are definitely bashing them, to tell you the truth, though, saying that 2018 is their greatest analog. And here, I believe the Euro has the right idea on the ENSO region, which is the opposite of last year when the strong El Nino collapsed. This year, Euro is forecasting weak La Nina reversing to an El Nino by the hurricane season. That's probably going to have implications on their forecast. So actually, hold on a second. I think they changed this. I think they updated this because now it looks like they are also going 2017 for an analog. I may be wrong, though. Oh, no, never mind. It's still there. This is released on February 7th. 2018 is the closest analog. I don't agree with that. I definitely don't agree with that. El Nino may develop, but likely won't be a huge factor if it does. Unlike last year, there are currently no clear landfall signals. I definitely think there is. We will issue our high-impact area forecast map with the April update, so in April we'll also have a bit of a chance to talk about that. But I don't agree with some of this stuff. I really don't. I don't think that's going to be I don't think that it's going to be an El Nino year. So, but anyways, guys, I'm rambling now. I do apologize. I'm going to go ahead and close out this live stream. Thank you all so much for tuning in this evening. And I do agree, Wazim, 2017 is also a very good analog alongside 2012. And some folks have speculated 2021 is a decent analog as well. But that could change. That's definitely going to adjust if we continue to see the evolutions in our ENSO pattern like we are. But that's all she wrote, guys. We're going to go ahead and wrap up, and I'm probably going to do another live update, hopefully within the 24-hour period, about the severe weather, whether it be here on YouTube or possibly over on TikTok. I have not run a TikTok live stream in a little bit, and I've been telling the folks over there that I will, and I probably need to sooner than later. I feel bad. And then I think this might be one of the last tropical updates that we do for this month, just because I think we've run out of updates. I think that's about it. There really isn't, unless someone in the chat correct me if I'm wrong, I think we've covered all of our bases. We've done the ENSO discussion today. We've done the European model, we've done the North American multi-model, and the CANSIPs. So we've done all of our major updates, unless we get another update from an entity out there issuing a preseason forecast. I have to remember where the preseason forecasts are housed as well. I know last year there was a website I kept pulling up that had them all consolidated, and I don't really know where that is now, unfortunately. We will close out the stream looking at the severe risk. You can see lots of severe weather risk out there for day 2 and day 3. Day 4, what does it have for us? Yeah, see, so even the day 4 risk shows a lot for Georgia and the northern half of Florida, with a pretty decent tornado risk out there too. Look at that. Yeah, down over southern Georgia and the Florida Panhandle. So we'll have to see. On the 19th, IRI will issue another ENSO update. Okay, so I'll keep that pinpointed then on the 19th. I'll put a sticky note out right now so I can save that date. Let me find a pen in this smorgasbord of the weather center here. So the 19th March, IRI ENSO update. Not too sure if we're going to do a full-fledged live stream on that. It's literally one chart to discuss, but I may upload a YouTube short just to let you know just to let you all know that I looked at it, and perhaps we'll rope it into a bundle for another later live stream. What's the Florida situation or forecast for this year's hurricane season? Aaron, I do think that the Big Bend panhandle of Florida is going to have to watch. I do think that especially if we have the cool neutral to La Nina try to situate itself during September, October, November, I do foresee the threat, not the likelihood, but a threat to our southwestern coastline again from Tampa down to the Florida Keys. And then, yeah, I can definitely see there being an instance where we might have a storm try to make a run for the southern one-third of the peninsula as well, the eastern side. Kind of try to pull like a Hurricane Jean, Francis, or even a Andrew from back in the day. And I can also possibly see a couple of Matthews or Isaias or Dorians try to go up our east coast and scare the living daylights out of us. So I'm not too sure if I can stream the conference itself, but I will definitely be pumping out tons of content while I'm at the Hurricane Conference. That's an agreement that I have with WKMG and our sister station up there in Jacksonville, WJXT. I'm going to be working on a ton of content for both stations so we can turn out stories and also get ready for our Hurricane special. I will be watching Won't Happen Again for a while. Oh, Pam, you're talking about I thought you were saying you won't watch or won't happen again for a while. You won't be on here watching, but never mind. I know what you're talking about. But all right, everybody, it is 8:41. We're going to go ahead and close out the live stream. Thank you so much for being such a spectacular audience. Feel free to nudge that like button if you could be so kind. Share this information and click subscribe if you haven't done so already. Or if you're new to the channel and want to continue to get these recurring updates as we go month to month leading up to the initiation of hurricane season. Or if you'd like to get recurring weather updates, feel free to drop a subscription because I will be getting more active on this channel. Follow me at WXCenter_Nazario over on Instagram and on TikTok for more recurring updates. A bit of a more low-threat environment. I can update on there a lot more periodically than on here sometimes. I just recently had a huge schedule change, so once again, I'm back to trying to acclimate to that schedule, but I will continue to update you all. And I want to say, if not the rest of this month, for sure, April, May, and then obviously y'all know what happens June 1st, we're going to be coming out with the recurring updates. And just to give you a rough estimate, I'm going to probably start my recurring tropical updates 3, maybe 4 times a week by the start of the Eastern Pacific hurricane season. So about May 15th is when you're going to see my face showing up on here a lot more often with recurring tropical updates, whether or not there's things happening, just because I know that that is the meat and potatoes of this channel. It is the heart and bloodline of this channel, and I love it so much. That's low-key why I get excited for the hurricane season. Some folks out there may try to manipulate that statement. Oh, he gets excited to hype things up. No, I get excited because that's when we all come together as a community and we track what happens out there in the tropical basin, whether it be on the Eastern Pacific side or the Atlantic. And I'm getting chills just thinking about it. You know, the camaraderie, the community. I just enjoy it so much talking with everybody. So that's why I get excited. And obviously I love to throw around my Samuel L. Jackson gif, hold on to your butts. So we'll talk to you all again soon. Have a beautiful rest of your Thursday night. I will definitely see you again soon. Like I said, be on the lookout. I may try to do a short update tomorrow on the severe weather risk before things kick off. It's going to be a busy day tomorrow, and then I'm back in the studio again for Saturday and Sunday doing the night side shows. But regardless, I will make sure to make some time to throw updates out there, whether or not it's on social media, here on YouTube, or both. So make sure you get a good meal in tonight, folks. Have fun. Enjoy. Friends, family. Reach out to folks out there in the direct path of the severe weather if you want to go ahead and relay some of this tropical information to anybody you know that may benefit from it. Feel free to do so. Point them in our direction. I'm going to be working hard to continue to study, and keep hammering home as much tropical education and information into my brain as possible, especially for the Hurricane Conference, because this is my chance to get in there with the trenches and start talking to these highly accoladed tropical scientists and really dig deep to get some of that good information to you all. And you're very welcome. Thank you to everybody in the chat who's saying thank you. You guys mean the world to me. Roxanne, I'm excited to get out there for New Orleans. It's going to be a great time. And Mr. Man JJ, it's always a pleasure to have you in the stream. Thanks for the great stream tonight, Naz. You're very welcome. Daniel Schwartz, you're very welcome. Twilight Firefly 100, thanks again. It's great to have you in the chat. Mick and Marley, I know, it is our third season. You know, one of these days, I really need to get that, quote, members only thing started up, because I think it'd be so much fun. I mean, maybe not for you all, but I might even do it right after this, but I'm probably going to go back and go way to the beginning of this channel and start watching some of our Idalia updates and Lee updates and, you know, the 2023. Go back to some of our old tropics talks from late 2023, and maybe one night, if we do a $1 or $2 buy-in, just so that way we don't have random people coming in. Why are they watching old videos of this face? I think it'd be so cool. But yes, Maddie Bucky's good to see you. Haven't seen you in a while. Never too early to prepare for a hurricane season. You are correct. It is never too early, because as the old adage goes, it only takes one to make it a bad season. So have a great evening, everybody. Have a way to get warnings over the next 48 to 72 hours. I will probably be live one way, shape, or form to talk severe weather, whether it be for the rest of the United States, but especially here in Central Florida as we get dialed in for what's coming. It looks like there's already a tornado threat present on the board for Central Floridians, both on day 3, and day 4. And then we'll also continue to watch Climate Prediction Center. So many PCs out there, WPC, SPC, CPC. We'll also continue to watch Storm Prediction Center to see if they update their hazards for tomorrow and go for the high risk. I don't know. I am totally fine with them leaving it as a moderate. We shall see if they go high risk. That is a very high probabilistic forecast for much of this deep south and Dixie Alley. So we'll see. But thank you all once again. I'll continue to ramble on and talk myself in circles if I don't cut the live stream. So have a wonderful night. Consider clicking subscribe. Drop a comment down below upon the conclusion of this live stream if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. And we'll see you again soon. But until next time, and I'm never going to get tired of saying this, this is Weather Center Nazario, signing out.